right now.
Yeah, I think so. I
Yeah, I
mean,
see it.
do you see it recording?
It says recording. Yeah,
Dude, it's recording.
we
I feel
made
like
it.
we should have done this with more time, but we can try to go with it.
Let's do it
Yeah, do you want to just go for it?
for sure.
Let's make it happen, dude. I was so bummed that we couldn't do it on Instagram, but maybe this was like a sign that I was like, okay, need to take it to the next level
Potentially, yeah. I believe in divine intervention.
for sure. When did you get back from LA?
I got back Monday morning.
And you're out there for how long?
I was only out there for like 3 or 4 days, something like
And
that.
what were you up to? I mean, I saw that sick picture, but that picture of you jumping over the camera that Reg took, it was that here or
That
was
was
that in
here.
LA?
Yeah, that was here.
Dude, that was sick.
Yeah, it's crazy. It was his idea too. He was like, I saw something kind of like this, but he's like, you actually know how to jump, so maybe you could do it better. And it was crazy because we took it in two different spots. We took one picture and it was okay. And like it, the buildings didn't make that X, which is something I was like looking for when I was talking to him. And then he found a spot. We were just walking, and he's like, "Oh, dude, here's your X. You should do it here." And the thing that was crazy was I had to go out into traffic and run back onto the curb because that was the only way he could get the photo is if he was shooting it like out toward the traffic a little bit. So I was like running through traffic to stride over the camera.
Dude, I was wondering, I was like, is he lying down taking the picture? Is there traffic? Like, what time did they take it? That picture is sick. And if people watching right now don't know what we're talking about, I highly recommend you go check out I am Wave Zilla, his Instagram. And as you can hear, my voice is crackly and crazy. It's I've been on a hype, dude. I've been on a hype. So I thought, why not kick this off with an imperfect voice? For those of you guys watching right now, I am sitting, hanging here with Darryl Stingley, aka I am Wave Zilla, professional free runner. Parkour and free running, I guess, is the same thing. But is there a difference between those two?
I don't like to differentiate them because the way that free running came about was the name free running came from a documentary called Jump London, where one of the founding fathers of parkour, he was one of the main athletes in the thing. And I don't know why people thought parkour was going to be so difficult for English audiences to understand, so they came up with the term free running. Like, I don't know, but I still like the term. Like, I like the name free runner. So like, if you do parkour, you're a free runner. If you're a free runner, you do parkour. It's like, it's the same thing to me. I
So,
don't like.
so free running came from the notion or the belief that us idiots that speak English would not be able to pronounce parkour.
Yes. Exactly that.
That's crazy. That's crazy. Um, so for people watching, so Darryl, he's a professional parkour artist athlete. What I see it is as an alternative athlete because it's not something that most kids at school after class go and, hey, I'm going to join the free running team right now and do practice. It's not something that you see in the mainstream, but it is featured in mainstream. What is it that led you to get into something as alternative as free running? How did that happen?
The same documentary that I just told you about, I happened to see when I was watching TV really late, and I wasn't supposed to be, but it's a good thing that I was because I happened to stumble upon the Jump London documentary, and for some reason it was playing on the Discovery Channel, and it didn't air on the Discovery Channel, but it was 2 years old at that time, so it probably I understand how it could have been featured on there, but I saw that and I went online and was just looking for everything, and like literally the next day, I just started trying.
So you're just like, okay, I'm gonna jump off a building, see what happens.
Basically, I mean, like it was more like I'm gonna jump over this bench and try to put my hands on it and see what happens. And it it graduated to me jumping off of high stuff, which I wouldn't
So
recommend.
what was that your first, was that your first move, jumping over a bench?
I think my first move was what is called a Kong vault. So I mean, like, I think that the same vault exists in gymnastics, but it's not the same thing. You just like land two hands and bring your knees through your hands basically and land. Because that was like one of the first things I saw, and I was like, I don't know what that is, but that's got to be the thing. Like that's when I learned that, my life is complete, and then it went on from there. But I think, yeah, the
Yeah.
Kong was like the first thing I did.
So I have another question for you, which is your name, or your superhero name, which is I am Wave Zilla or Wave Zilla. I am Wave Zilla is your handle, and Wave Zilla is like your superhero name. Where did that come from?
I was at a point in time in my life dealing with a lot of struggles with where I was going with my career, parkour. I had been trying to be an official member of a team for a while, and I was working with them. I was competing under their name and doing all that stuff, and they weren't really giving me the um, the recognition that I felt I deserved. So I'm a big fan of hip hop, and I'm obviously a big fan of comic books. So Jay Dilla, who is a producer and rapper, rest in peace, was one of the people that inspired me. So I was like, okay, cool. Well, how do I turn that into myself? You know. So I made up Wave Zilla, and I didn't make it up necessarily to be like me or a nickname or anything like that. I made it up actually to be like a video persona, just for like one project. You know, just like a little thing like that. And then people started calling me Wave Zilla. So I was like, okay, well, I looked on Instagram to see if it existed, and it already existed. So I had to make the I am, and then it was original that way.
Okay, so I have a question. Did you take over the original Wave Zilla? Did you take him over?
I
Like,
don't think
did you pass him?
I don't think that Wave Zilla has as many followers as I do. Um, but I'm
What does
certain
that
that
Wave Zilla do? What does that guy do, or her? What does she do?
I think it is a she, and she's a surfer, if
Oh,
I'm not mistaken.
sick.
I think it's something like that. It's like she's a surfer, or it's a musical group, because I know there's two Wavezillas, and like I remember one of them is just Wavezilla where the name is, and one of them is the actual handle of Wavezilla. And
Okay,
I
so
think,
then respect to them. Respect to them.
yeah, I'm not mad. I'm not mad. They're a different Wavezilla. It's fine.
That's cool. That's cool. I like it. It's always good to have a little friendly competition. Um, so going into the free running thing, I mean, I think most people have a vague idea of what free running is, which is basically getting from point A to B in the most efficient, effective, cool, creative way. But is there anything else that you feel like people who are unfamiliar with your craft should know or would benefit from knowing?
Yeah, the most basic example or definition of parkour and free running is exactly what you said. The fastest and most efficient, effective way from point A to point B, using only your body, is the idea. Now, the thing that that I think is lost in translation, and what may create the confusion between parkour and free running is there's like an acrobatic aspect to it, right? And a creativity aspect to it. And the way that I see that is much like skiing or skateboarding. You know, there's different facets of the same motion. You know, it's all the same sport, but there are different facets. There's different styles. You know, there's different focuses for people. And the biggest thing I think in parkour, you know, as much as it evolved now, is that it's become less about I'm just doing this movement, and more about some sort of like inner challenge, you know. So one of the runs that I recently posted was really one of the most challenging runs for me ever, physically and mentally. And it
Was that the
wasn't
16 bars one?
that was one of them. Yeah, that was the one that blew up.
Dude,
uh,
we need to talk about that. We need to talk about that one because when you filmed that, you sent me the clips. And what people don't know is that that 15-second clip, which was one of the hardest runs you've ever done, as you said, you sent me 90 clips of you trying to make that happen. That's incredible. And I think that's what people don't realize is the amount of effort that you put into preparing and practicing these lines and then presenting it in this beautiful, seamless 15-second video. Can you kind of talk me through that process? Because I know there's creativity that goes into it, but there's this inner fire that you were talking about, that drive, inner challenge. Can you talk about that process that you go through to create these moments for us?
Yeah. Well, the way that I make these things happen, the way that I come up with the movements and work my way through them is I think of something outlandish. Like usually that's how it starts. It's like, okay, if, I think I've told you this before, if Batman were here or if Black Panther were here, like how would they move through this space? And that's how I see it. And I just see something that I don't think at first is possible. And then I work my way through small parts of it to see if I can do the parts of it. So, you know, there's like a big motion, a big jump that starts the clip off. And that was one of the first things I did. There's like a little wall dynamic transfer that I do from a swing. And I did that one by itself. And I've already done, you know, some of the other swings before. And it was just more of like, okay, I know I can do some of these individual pieces and I can do them well. Now, can I put them all together? And that's where the difficulty came from. It wasn't that I wasn't capable of completing one of the moves. It's putting all the moves together. And I'm not very complacent in my movement. So like sometimes if I feel like things aren't going exactly how I saw them in my head, then I just don't even, I'll stop and I'll start over. But that line in particular was stopping me. It wasn't even me completely stopping myself. It was a lot of the time just like parts of it are so physically difficult, and they require so much focus that if I like lose that focus for even a slight second, it'll kill everything, and it'll, you know, and I'll obviously have to deal with the consequences of that. So and in that one, all it really was aside from the physical challenge and the mental challenge and the technicality of all of it, it was just continuing to try to push through it. And that's why it took 90 clips for me to get it, because I was really, really trying to, no matter how tired or fatigued or whatever I felt, I was like, I came in here and we already put in this much time. I'm not leaving here without this. And it's, sometimes I don't understand how it happens because I feel like, I can't even run anymore. But then I still got to do this line. So, you know, something makes it happen.
Dude, that is so sick to hear because for many reasons, but I feel like, you know, you talked about the psychological, the physical level, but there's something about that feel for that movement, that thing that you just know if it's right. And the fact that you're the one that just sticks to it until you get it. I think that's what sets people like yourself apart. And I want people to really relate to that, because I think that's kind of one of the biggest keys to what people would see as success. It's like you could have walked away 30 clips in, 50 clips in, and been like, okay, I'm not ready. I'll come back tomorrow. But there was something deep inside of you just saying, just go for it and go for it. And it's that drive to get that feeling that is what gets you to do the things that you're doing. And the fact that you can put that into words and then show it through these clips that are just, you know, the comments, when you look at them, they're talking about you looking like a superhero. Some people are like, is this a video game? What is this? It's like, no, this is a real human just taking his body to that level where he is able to perform what he can see and he's feeling it at the same time. And that's where one of my sayings of true human performance can only be measured by feel really feels like it relates. And dude, that's I mean, it's super inspiring to me. So I assume it's going to be inspiring for other people to see that clip and to realize. And hopefully one day we can make an edit where we show like the true struggle that goes into this.
Yeah, I'd be down for that.
Yeah, I mean that leads to kind of a follow-up question I have. In your professional career as a free runner, uh, do you have a memorable moment, or one of, let's say you have one or two memorable moments in your career that feels like those were transition points, or that defined a little bit of your trajectory? Do you have any of that?
I think I have two, and one of them is actually like a major breaking point for me because it was when I tore some of the ligaments in my left knee.
Mm,
Uh, that was at the, what was it, 2014 North American Parkour Championships. It was my first big competition. And I was like eager, and I was competing for the same team that I was previously speaking about, and I was eager, I think, to prove myself, and I was just out there. Um, Partially, I wasn't, I didn't have really good examples of athletes around me. People that have the idea of technique or longevity or strength, or what I mean, conditioning. I didn't have those types of people around me, so I don't think at my age at the time I was thoughtful enough of my body or of how I was training. I was just strong, and I could do the movement, and it wasn't as much about how well I could. And I think that led me to my injury. And it was like the final speed course of the second part of the competition. So the first part was a skill competition, and I got fourth in that, so I was pretty happy. The second part was a three-course speed competition, and I was in the final course, and I was going super fast. I just came down, and my knee completely collapsed, gave out. And one of my like idols and good friends at the time, Dylan Baker, was one of the people that had to carry me up from that position and out to the elevator and like get me to the emergency room. And he was competing as well, so like he went from seeing me do that and taking me out to the elevator to placing second in that competition.
wow.
That was definitely a huge one for me.
So it
um,
sounds like that was a moment where you kind of realized that although you're built and strong and you can power through things, that there's something else to performance. What could you pinpoint out what that is?
I believe that it was, I think that the thing that was missing was that I didn't have that attention to detail that I have now. I didn't have the attention to what I needed to be able to do the movements that I was doing at the high level that I was doing them, because I believe that had I been training the way that I train now, I would have been more than capable of dealing with that, and of doing all of that movement in one day. Um, I wouldn't have experienced that injury had I actually paid more attention to the fine technique of the movement that I perform. So now I believe I have that, and I have the strength and I have the stamina. The only difference is, and this is what I don't think a lot of people know, is I'm still affected by that knee injury because I never got surgery. I
Wow.
only I only got rehabilitation. So as I would say that I'm capable and technically way ahead of myself at that time. Like technically, I'm so far past that, but I don't have the I don't have the same left leg strength that I had. It's a little different. Like I can jump farther standing, but running, I don't think that I have the complete stability to give myself a full takeoff of my left leg or landing on only my left leg. So every competition I've been to and every video I've made since then, I think I've been kind of handicapped, which is why my mind has been one of the strongest tools for me throughout
That
that.
is awesome. That is awesome. Isn't it interesting to hear how advanced we are, physically, and our potential, how far away it is, but we at sometimes get the opportunity to tap into it, but then we are stopped by what is missing, our inability maybe to understand and be aware of that level of performance, and all of a sudden we're stopped in our tracks with an injury. And it seems like instead of getting down on yourself, you really use that as a strength. Your weakness became your strength, and now it's been manifested in your mindset, which is what inspires me, dude, so much when I talk to you, is your ability to process and be aware of why and when and how and who you're around and doing these things. And I think that's just super cool. And one thing that actually came up here in this memorable moment that you were talking about was having athletes around you that you could kind of relate to. Um, I have another question about something that happened a couple of days ago with you, was that Rocks Right, B-Boy Rocks Right,
Yeah.
one of the best in the world. I think he's won 97 battles. And these 97 battles have got him at many places in the world. But he ended up following you, I think, on Instagram, and you got pretty excited about that. Can I ask you why that was so exciting to you, especially him being from a completely different field, such as breakdancing?
Well, my dad was a b-boy when he was younger. So, when I was younger, I knew that, and I would go ballistic over all of the b-boy stuff. I've always loved the breaking community and the dancing community in general, but I don't know exactly why it was that I got so hyped off of Rocks, right? There's something about how he moves, like, you know, one of my b-boy friends said they call him Rocks Right because he rocks right, and I was like, I like that. Um,
Sick.
but I saw him in 2007. I think 2007, the Red Bull BC one, where like he had to battle against Lilu, and he said like all I was trying to do was get third so that I could be invited back next year because I knew next year I could really bring it. And I was like, oh, that's strategy. I like that. I like that thought process, and I just love how he does things. Everything he does is so perfect. It's always so beautiful and perfect and well put together. Like he is the truest master of his craft, I think. And it's not just his flair, like there's different b-boys that are good, but they have a lot of flair, and that's what I think is attractive about them. But with him, it's like it's not even about the flair. It's just about like he can do it so perfectly that it stands out from everybody else. So he's been a hero of mine for a long, long time, and like I had never seen a notification with his name in it. You know what I mean? And when I
So
saw that,
sick.
I was in the car too, and I dropped my phone, and my wife was driving. She goes, "What's wrong? What's wrong?" And I was like, I can't explain it. I don't even fanboy like this, but I had to that time.
Dude, it was so awesome. And for me, it was like two worlds colliding, because the same admiration that I have for Rocks Right, which you can find at Rocks Right, spelled ROX Right, RITE, Rocks Right. Um, I have for you the same admiration. And one of the cool things is that breakdancing, being a dance, he treats it like a sport, and he's an athlete first, an artist second, depending on the context. When he's on the battlefield, he's battling, but in the lab, he's the artist putting it all together and polishing it up. And just like you said, his execution is just awesome, and he's so strategic. And dude, he walked in with the towel around his neck and the whole thing. It's like old school boxer, just really cool. So I think that's awesome. And for me, what's exciting to see someone like Rocks Right engaging with you is that it's where we get to shake hands, and we're united. And uh, as you well know, being an ambassador for Strike Movement, and myself, being united by motion is everything. And I think that's what we're really calling for, that kind of unity and respect across fields and across disciplines. And the fact that that's happening is just so awesome. This leads me to my next question. Do you have any mentors? And if so, what is one of the biggest lessons you've learned from a mentor of yours?
Well, I have two mentors. You're one of my mentors, which I've learned a lot from you in terms of like how you approach. I don't even know if I'd call it challenge. For you, it's more like opportunity and less of challenge. Like I like how you see things because you don't make it seem like it's negative. You always make everything seem like, oh, this is an opportunity to grow and learn. and become a better person, a better mover, a better athlete, and that I've always enjoyed from you. And I get it a lot from how you speak to me and how you speak to people. Uh, and I try my best not to completely be a carbon copy because I feel like that wouldn't be correct or fair. But I try to take a lot of the examples that you've given me and relay them to other people. So, when I speak to you, sometimes I feel like I'm complaining and you say like, oh no, that's an opportunity. And you twist it around. And then I'm like, oh, I need to see things like that. I feel like that would be I'd be a better person and I could be better to my people if I see things like that. So that's what I think I've gotten a lot from you, as well as like a constant driven work ethic. Like I feel like Carl wouldn't give up. I can't give up.
Dude, that's
So
awesome. I almost feel like crying here. That's very nice of you, and that's awesome because I feel the same way. I mean, even when you say you're venting, what you're really doing is processing all the information that you're accumulating, and just to hear you say those things as you're speaking, I'm like, oh yeah, that sounds really good. Like that's something I need to do more of. So it's so cool, right? To know that maybe if I can be a mentor figure once in a while. Just hearing you speak right now, I feel like you're mentoring me back with my own lessons. So that's cool. And then you have another mentor. What have you learned from him, and who is he?
his name is Renee Scavington. I think you might know who he is.
Yeah.
He's the owner of Origins Parkour in Vancouver, Canada, and he is one of the founders of the North American Parkour Championships, which is my favorite competition. And I actually met him at my old gym in Los Angeles, Tempest Academy Valley, during another competition, and he walked up to me at the end of it because it was a speed competition, and he said, "Hey man, I just want to let you know that every course you run, you do it so beautifully." And I was like, I had never met him at this time, and I was like, "Oh, thanks." I didn't know who he was,
Uh-huh.
and he's like, "I no, really, like they're beautiful." And I was like, "Thank you." And then as I'm kind of like a detective. I was like, okay, now I got to know exactly who this is and everything he's about. And I looked up everything about him, and I was like, wow, this guy is like a well of sports knowledge, and he does such a good job of relaying information and translating some of the other sports training methods like track and field, and like strength and conditioning with weights. He's really good at translating that into like parkour. Like how can this directly affect parkour? And he's very technical. And I think after my injury, is when he became one of like my closest peers and mentor figures. He's the closest thing I ever had to a real coach. And he you know he kind of like gave me examples of, okay, this is why I think that this happened. This is where losing you're losing power. This is where you're becoming more effective in your movement. You have this natural capability that I see and notice. And what he did for me was he was able to make things make sense. And I think I was always good at making things make sense to myself. But when things worked for me, I wouldn't always know exactly why. I just would assume like, okay, like I understand what to do. And what he helped me out with was turning those things into like relatable and translatable language, if that makes sense. So,
Hmm.
instead of just being like getting your dive is going to get you more power, like no, the extension of your dive gives you more range of muscle with the lats, and then when you slap the hands down, you get to use that range, and that will effectively give you more power. And like that's what I got from him, that understanding of how to relate the movement to, or translate the movement to actual like understandable language.
Yeah.
So, and that's what I really.
That's so sick. That's so sick. I get two things out of hearing you say that. One, what I get is we all need coaches, we all need teachers, and that's important. And a lot of people are out there trying to look for these teachers and look for these coaches and choose. But the truth is, the best coaches, the best teachers choose you. And at that time, I guess that's what was so beautiful. You were performing at the best level you possibly could perform, and a teacher, a mentor, a coach approached you, and organically you guys built that relationship. And I think that's so awesome that you were in a mental place where you could be receiving of that mentorship, which is so important. And I think that's a beautiful thing. And I think that's such a powerful transition. Dude, I have one last question here, and we can just do this pretty fast. But what it is, I think a lot of people watching or listening right now are probably asking themselves, how does one become a free runner? How does one choose to do something that seems so out of the norm, such as free running, as a career where, I mean, you can pay rent, you're married, you live the professional free running lifestyle. How does one do that? If you have any practical advice on that, I would be very curious to hear.
Well, I think the first thing is people people have to let go of what society says you can do. When I started this, at first I didn't know I could go pro, and like within 2 years, I was seeing that people were making their living from it. And what I wanted to do was, all I wanted to do was this and get the best I could be at it. So I was like, why not turn it into my career? And I had some people telling me you couldn't, and I had some people saying, yes, you can. And my dad was one of those people saying, like, man, if you do it 100%. So the only thing, like the main thing I would say to anybody is, if you're going to do it, you can't doubt it. Like, if you have doubt, you need to push that out immediately. Like, just get that out of your mind and keep pushing toward what you want and just believing it. And I think the universe will give it back, because that's what happened to me. I just kept doing it. There were stunt jobs I didn't take. There were modeling jobs I didn't take. All I wanted to do was this. I just was like, any time I spend not putting effort into something that's going to help me here is, in my mind, wasted time. Mm-hmm. So I put as much of my time and effort and thought into doing it, and that's where it came from, I think. So if anybody is trying to get into this or anything that is as outlandish as parkour, you just have to do it 100%. You have to keep trying, and you can't give up just because it's hard or because somebody tells you it's gonna be hard.
Because I think a lot of people are very scared of failing, and I think that's the biggest thing. And what I tell people is, you're going to fail. It's going to happen. How do you overcome failure, or how have you used failure? I mean, one of the examples is you injuring your knee. But if you have a little insight on overcoming failure when pursuing your dreams, I would love to hear it.
Well, I think you got to be a little insane.
Yeah.
You got to just be like, well, I mean, it didn't work. I'm going to try it again. Because that's exactly what the definition of insanity is. Like, doing the same thing and expecting a different outcome. So that's part of it. The other part is just, it's really like, how much do you believe and how much do you love what you do? If you're going to fail, like, are you going to treat that as, I failed, I'm worthless, I'm no good? Or are you going to treat that as, this is something spectacular to come back from, or something spectacular to grow from? And that's how I saw it. Especially when I injured my knee, I was like, this is something that hasn't happened yet in this sport. Nobody's sustained this type of an injury and come back at a high level. And I'll be damned if I allow myself to lose out on at the time, I think 9 years or 9 years of work I put into this. Like, I'll be damned if I lose that. I'm not losing that. I'm gonna keep going, and I'll be amazing because of it. Like, that will be something that will be amazing for anybody else that goes through the same thing. They'll see an example, because I didn't have an example. So I was like, if I can do it, then somebody else can do it, and then the excuses are gone. So that's how I see failure. It's just 90 clips.
90 clips. That's it, dude. 90 clips. Dude, so awesome. Darryl, thank you so much for doing this and talking to me and sharing so much insight. I'm kind of overwhelmed right now and super inspired. And I feel like, even though I've known you now for a while, I feel like I learned a lot of new things, and it's just such a pleasure to watch you just continue to grow and push. And yeah, thank you for being you and doing what you're doing. It's really, really cool. I appreciate you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Carl.
Dude, let's do this again, okay?
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah, man. Well, hopefully we can share this with the world, and people can get excited, because I'm excited right now.
I was going to say, I'm excited. That's exactly what I was going to say.
So good, dude. So good.